Hi everybody, this is Laura, City Scrapper. Thank you so much for joining me on my channel today. Today I'm catching up on some voiceovers, and this is a layout that I created using the December My Creative Scrapbook limited edition kit. The December kit was filled with papers and embellishments from the 49 and Market Christmas collection from this year called Peace and Joy, and we also received quite a few papers from the Blue Fern Studios Christmas Cheer collection. I started the layout by using one of the 49 and Market pattern papers for the background. There were some lines that went around the large circle that's in the center, and I punched some holes along those lines, and I stitched them using some white embroidery thread. And since I wasn't really sure exactly what I was going to do for the layout, I knew that a fair amount of the hand stitching was going to get covered up, but after I was done making the layout, I feel that enough of it is visible that it made it worth the stitching. So for this layout, I used a square photo of my younger daughter, Julia, and I'm using one of the 49 and Market frames. The white and red stripe is great for a Christmas layout, I think. I put a piece of thick cardstock behind the photo to make it a little sturdier, and then I added some fun foam to the back of that whole unit so that it would pop up off of the page a little bit. And here I'm just making sure that everything is even using my T-square. And I also wanted to make sure that the photo was right in the center of the layout. The title that I'm using is Happy Holidays. That is a 49 and Market title that was in the kit, and I'm inking the edges of it. I used Distress Oxide. The color is Mowed Lawn. And I also used Distress Oxide to ink the frame, but for that I used the color Candied Apple. To give the title a little bit more dimension, I back it with some fun foam as well. Once I have the foam cut to the correct dimensions, I remove the adhesive backing and I stick that down to the title, and then I use ATG adhesive to stick the foam down to the pattern paper. Now I'm going to start embellishing the layout. I know I want to use some of the dimensional flowers and some of the die cuts that are from the kit, but I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do. I decided to start out by trialing some of those holly leaves on top of the title. And I also liked the die cut that I just placed under the photo. It is basically all the colors that are in this collection, and I like the way the whole array of colors looks so bright and cheery. I wanted to incorporate some of these really beautiful sparkly poinsettias into the layout. I picked out some red ones and some white ones. I also included some of the other beautiful floral elements that came in the packages of flowers. I added some die cuts to the layout as well. I have some pine branches on the layout right now. And the pine branches originally had a much thicker white border around the outside. I still wanted to have a white border, but I just trimmed that border down a little bit. I also added some banners underneath the photo. There were 3 different banners in 3 different colors that I thought fit there really well. And I ended up adding a lot more florals than I thought I was going to. One of the first things that I picked out for this layout were these awesome red Santa boots. I just love the red of the boots. And it turns out that because I added so many more florals than I had anticipated, the boots started to look too large for the layout. So I don't end up including the boots on this layout, but I do really like them. And I like the way the banners looked as far as the shape. I like the way they were around the bottom of the circle. I like the way they kind of fit around that curve, but I thought that they looked a little too plain. So now I'm using some of the Blue Fern Studios Christmas Cheer paper, and I'm cutting smaller banners to fit inside the larger banners. This will add a little bit of color, but I'll still have the white outline around the outside of each of the banners. So I cut one banner to the size that I wanted it, and then I used that as a template for the other 2. And I used 3 different pattern papers, one for each of those banners. And you can see that I'm inking the edges of the pieces that I'm inserting in the center, and also I ink the edges of the banners themselves with the Mowed Lawn Distress Oxide. And now that everything is all cut out and inked, I'm using some adhesive and I'm attaching those banners down to the larger banners. And then the banners down to the page. I do come back to the banners and add a little bit more embellishing to them, but at this time I'm going to go back to the clusters and I'm going to pop up those pine needles on some foam. And because I have the dimensional flowers, I thought it would be a nice idea to add some dimension to the pine needles, which are the only thing that lays flat in those clusters right now. And I want to get the cluster just the way I want it, the one that's on the right hand side. So I trim one of the florals a little bit and then I arrange the poinsettias and I make sure that everything is just the way I want it before I use some gel glue and attach everything down to the page. And I use a little jar that was on my desk to help weigh down one of the florals. In the end, it turns out that I have to move that floral, and it was a little tricky to move once I had glued it down, but everything works out fine in the end. And now I move on to the cluster on the other side of the layout. I again attach those poinsettias down and I use some gel glue for that as well. I add some foam to the back of the pine needles on that side as well. And now I'm arranging some of the florals and trimming them just as I did on the other side, and I go ahead and attach all of that down to the layout. For some reason, I really love bird embellishments. I mean, I really like birds, but I just love adding those embellishments to the page. So I inked up the edge of this little bird and I popped him up on some foam and I attached him down where those poinsettias are. And you can see at this point I still have those boots on the layout. I really don't want to give them up, but I do end up taking the boots off. I wanted to add a little bit more to those two large floral clusters to kind of fill them out a little bit, but I didn't want to add anything that was too prominent because I already have so many beautiful elements that are in those clusters. So I thought that some pine branches would be subtle. So I used a die that I had in my stash and I cut out these rather delicate pine needles and I'm just using them to make those clusters a little bit fuller. And I'm placing them around the poinsettias. I am not spreading them all around the entire cluster. The color of Distress Oxide that I used to ink that white cardstock was Mowed Lawn. This photo of my daughter Julia was taken on Christmas Eve of last year. Just like so many other families, our Thanksgiving and Christmas plans were interrupted by COVID. And of course, the most important thing is that everybody recovered and everybody is healthy. But it's really true that you don't appreciate, or I shouldn't speak for anybody else, that I didn't appreciate some things because I looked at them as givens and things that would always take place. And I think that this does help me to appreciate some of our holidays and all of our family so much more. It's a very eye-opening experience for sure. So you can see that I finally took off those red boots. Hopefully I can find a spot for them on another layout. I believe I fussy cut this little bird out of one of the pattern papers. So I popped this little bird up on some foam as well, and I'm attaching him down on the right side of the layout because he's facing to the left. I fuss around with the holly leaves that are over the title a little bit, and I attach those down to the layout. And I added these holly leaf die cuts. I had these on my desk. They were from another project, but I thought that they also helped to fill out those floral areas, and the color was a good match for this layout. On the right-hand side of the layout, I repositioned one of the florals, and when I pulled it up, it left a little bit of a reddish brownish paint on the layout, so I also covered that up with one of those holly leaves. So they served multiple purposes. And that little bird, the little red bird, finally ended up on the lower left-hand side of the frame. I add some self-adhesive pearls to the layout. I put some large ones in between the banners. I really like those. They're quite large. I don't know where I got those and I don't have any more of them, but I like the way they're larger in scale than the other pearls. And then I put some other pearls mixed in with the florals. I didn't put a ton of them. I just wanted to have a little sprinkling of different size pearls. And I not only place different size pearls among the florals, I put an extra assortment of those small pearls on the top of the title where those holly leaves are. And I had considered adding something to the banners on the bottom, maybe writing joy, but I didn't want to compete with the title that was at the top, so I decided to just leave them plain, and that completes this layout. Thank you so much for watching this video, everybody. I really, really appreciate everybody taking the time to watch my videos. I really hope that you enjoyed it. In the description box, you'll find a link to the My Creative Scrapbook website, and you could check out all of the beautiful kits that they have available every month. I hope that everybody has a fantastic day, and I will see all of you again soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.